Hello again, I'm Gamma-Rays and I've been a Dungeon Master since I became a Super Saiyan. So, your players decided to go to Zymorven Hall before heading to Everland or Silvery Moon. No worries, we'll be shifting everything over to the east to make up for this. And if your players have left Silvery Moon and have finally reached this place to get the Giant's Bane, then this is what we're gonna do. We'll be creating a challenge I gave to one of my parties that got them fully immersed in the place and really had them treasure the weapon they received. Otherwise, they may just skip getting Giant's Bane because heading back all the way to Iyrmtih is absolutely asinine. There are several goals you want out of this location. Giving your players an area of rest and respite, or respite, in the northern region to restock, making your players feel special and important to the overall plot of the world, renewed vigor in dealing with the giant problem, and foreshadowing Iymrith. Yes, we will be foreshadowing Iymrith in Zymorven's Hall. How? Well, keep watching and you'll find out. Now, whether your players drop in from Zephyros's tower or have made their way up through Silvery Moon, you can give them the following description. A castle, one that has several towers, rises above a cliff and overlooks the Evermore. It is decorated with many gargoyles on its walls. Some have the regular winged gargoyle shapes, others seem to be shaped like wolves overlooking the rising land beneath them. The wind howls and the cold stings as you make your way towards the gigantic wooden gates of Zymorven Hall. With a loud creak, the gates open inwards and allow the players to walk into a huge hallway that's lit by dim blue continuous lights on sconces on either sides of the walls. No one meets them at the entrance, but when they move into it, the gate closes behind them, and when they look back, they see two large giant statues closing the gates. Use the stat blocks for stone golems if your players are that murder hoboy. After the gate closes, the golems stand to either side of the doors and become still once again. The party walks deeper into the castle, and at the end of the hallway, they find themselves entering a great hall with 4 humongous tables and benches that adventurers, travelers, and merchants can all use to relax when eating. The halls have servants moving from table to table, making sure the guests receive the food and drinks that they've ordered and desired. So yes, it is a discount Hogwarts. And like Hogwarts, you need to make this place feel magical. And all throughout the Great Hall, you can see huge stone statues and weapons lined up on the walls. While the place is always lit with continuous flames, it still feels a little eerie when the butlers move around and bring everyone food and drinks. These statues and weapons are under Zymorven's control. If any threat ever appears, they will move to protect the keep and any who reside in it. If someone inside the keep would begin to cause trouble to the point where the butlers can't talk them down, then they move to arrest the troublemakers and put them in dungeons below. We're talking about statues and weapons here. They can either be taken to meet Zymorven, or Zymorven could be brought to them to talk. Honestly, I prefer the latter option, as you can have him walking around talking with other people in the hall to make sure everything is to their liking. Like a restaurant manager who only comes around when your mouth's full of food. A wrinkly skinned human with short grey hair in blue and yellow robes walks up to you and asks, "Well, hello there, young ones. Hope the food was to your tastes." And with that, your players now begin talking to Harthos Zymorven. He's a kind old man, not as calm as Crowin, but a tad more bubbly in personality. He has some goals he wants to see reached that we'll go into in the future. When he is told that the party comes as a recommendation by Iyrmtih of Tribor, then Zymorven's interest peaks. If for some reason your players don't let him know that Iyrmtih is the one who sent them there, then recounting their previous battles with giants, he will still go ahead and do the following. When he is told by the party that they come as a recommendation by Iyrmtih of Tribor, then Zymorven's interest peaks. He asks about her well-being, and when he hears she was endangered by an attack from giants, he becomes angry and a little fury rises within him. His eyes become sharper as he takes one more look at the party, almost as if he was properly assessing them now. The air around him seems a little electrified as his tone shifts completely and he says, "Follow me if you want the Giant's Bane." So this is where we can have a lot of fun. Zymorven walks them up to the highest level of Zymorven's Hall. An arena in the open air that hangs right above the side of the cliff overlooking the Evermoors. This arena would have lots of statues of gargoyles and armors and weapons and all and whatnot all around it. And it is lit up by, you guessed it, continuous flames. In the far end of the arena, there is a giant spire that rises up 120 feet in the air. You can take it up even more if you want. And on top of that, on an altar, on top of the spire, sits the Giant's Bane. Now, whether your Giant's Bane is a great sword, a great axe, a long sword, a rapier, whatever it may be, you can design it however you like, flavor it however you like. It's always fun when you go ahead and make a simple design that kind of sparkles and adds an atmosphere to the area. I myself was giving the paladin that I had a battle axe. So I had the weapon appear as a battle axe of pure white metal that arcs like the crescent moon. And as it rests atop and the clouds part, you see the moon kind of lines up with the crescent blade of the axe, and it lights up the arena ever so slightly with a faint glow. Now, Zymorven stands before the party and he looks towards them and he says, "That is the Giant's Bane. If you want to get it, go ahead." Beneath that spire at the far end is a huge four-armed winged gargoyle. And I'll put the stat block as well. That just towers a little bit higher than fire giants would. It has its arms stretched out and its fangs and eyes give a ominous glare as it looks down towards the rest of the arena. Zymorven looks towards the party and says, "Do you want the Giant's Bane?" When the party says yes, he says, "Very well. Let us see if you are worthy." He turns towards the gargoyle and he speaks. "Your Eminence, it is I, speaking to you once again. I have a party of adventurers here who would like to use the Giant's Bane to bring the giants down. What say you?" And with that, the gargoyle's eyes light up in a very bright blue that sends chills down the player's spine. Now, remember this description because you're going to be using it more than once. Why? Because that will be the description of whenever Iymrith's eyes look towards the players. And as Iymrith replies through the gargoyle towards Harthos Zymorven, she says in a cold and brittle voice that goes something like this: "If they can weather this challenge." And the gargoyle begins to rise up in the air as it flies, centering itself in the middle of the spire. It outstretches its arms completely, all four, and its wings, and calls out the others. More gargoyles begin to fly out from the edges of the arena, and from below Zymorven, as he steps away, the ground opens up, and you see a crystalline minotaur with an axe rising up from the ground. Zymorven takes his place behind the minotaur, steps back a little bit, and he says, "You heard what Her Eminence says. Her Eminence has spoken." And he pulls out what looks like a gold and blue crown. He puts it onto his head, and when he does, like how Thanos with his infinity gauntlet, sparks run through his body, and the feeble old man that the party was seeing before suddenly changes. He gets upright, he gets a more confident posture as he smiles and lightning begins to spark out of his body. He goes, "Let us begin." Now, the goal of the party is to do one of two things, maybe even three. The first goal is the combat would end when the party manages to rise up and grab the Giant's Bane. The second goal, if they destroy all the gargoyles in the arena along with the colossal one, then Harthos gives them the weapon and ends the combat. If Harthos is dropped unconscious, the combat also ends. So you have 3 win conditions, and your party might go for any one of these. So have fun with it. What we are going to do is the following. Zymorven is a warlock of Iymrith. He is a retired adventurer, so he isn't that powerful, but you can have him using 5th or 6th level spells, up to you. And the crown that he puts on his head is a small hint towards Iymrith herself, along with the blue eyes and the brittle voice that comes out of the gargoyles. The crown turns all of his spells' damage into lightning. So, whether you have him be a warlock or a wizard or a sorcerer or a cleric, it's up to you really. Just flavor every single one of his spells that he uses to have lightning damage. I used the warlock stat block, but I gave him Wall of Fire to block off the party's run-in towards him and the spire. But instead of using fire as the wall, you describe a surge of lightning and electricity that just rages out from his fingertips and lines up and creates the static, ever rumbling and crackling atmosphere in the area. The Crystal Minotaur is amazing to fight melee enemies, because when your party hits this thing from 5 feet away, then the crystal shards will damage them. The other gargoyles are here to just keep pummeling the party as much as they can. The big one stays in place. It does not enter the fight, but whenever its action comes up, and I treat it like a lair action, which is on initiative count 20, I don't bother rolling for it. When its turn comes up, it readies its action to grapple whoever gets close to it. And its reach is 10 or 15 feet, up to you really if you want to extend it, because it is absolutely humongous as a statue. And anyone who tries to get in, it will use its reaction to attempt to grapple with it. And when it's grappled, when its action comes back, its turn comes back, it throws the party member back down towards the ground. So there's just one point of contention. The giant 4-armed gargoyle that you can use has 4 attacks. So I ruled it as when it holds its action to attempt to grapple or attack, then it uses all of its attacks, because that's the rule I was using for my players. When my players hold their action and they have extra attack, I let them attack twice when the condition happens. So my gargoyle attempts to grapple 4 times. When its grapple succeeds, it stops, and at its next turn, when its initiative comes around, it throws the player back down. Now I'm aware that the general rule is you use your reaction to attack once, but even if so, then you're using it for your players, and therefore it should be fine when the gargoyle does it. When your players finish any one of the 3 conditions, destroying the gargoyles, dropping Zymorven unconscious, they shouldn't kill him. If they kill Zymorven, then the gargoyles are going to coalesce on them, and they're not going to give them the weapon. Or destroy the giant gargoyle, then they get Giant's Bane. When Zymorven hands them the Giant's Bane, actually Zymorven won't hand them the Giant's Bane, the large gargoyle will, unless it is destroyed. And when they get the Giant's Bane, if the gargoyle has survived the action, then its eyes, its bright blue eyes, will look into the player who grabs a hold of this weapon, and it will tell them to wreak havoc upon the giants of the realm and bring them down one by one. Now you can have the weapon be sentient or not, it's really up to you. I find sentient weapons to be fun, but if you can also have it like a vestige of divergence as it grows with the players while they're using it. And yeah, you can have your fun with this weapon. Just don't give them more than 1 Giant's Bane, because then fighting giants will just become a breeze, as it already should be at this point. When the players rest up after this encounter, Zymorven tells them to please use his facilities however they see fit. Now, when your players go ahead to restock, they don't find shopkeepers, they don't find armories, they find gargoyle vending machines, in which they choose what they want, they click on the image, the gargoyle extends their arm to get the money. When they get the money, it retracts into the statue, and then another part of the wall opens up and hands the players whatever they've bought. It'll give the place just that much more atmosphere, to say the least. And with that, your players will head on out of Zymorven Hall after they've restocked, gained Giant's Bane, and they begin to move north towards Harshnag. Unless they've dropped in from from Zephyros's tower, in which case you'll dial down the Harshnag information so that they can get it from, let's say, Silvery Moon or Everland. If they're not interested in going to Everland, just give them the information at Silvery Moon and you'll be good. And they begin to move towards wherever Harshnag is and attempt to befriend him. Now, I was going to get into Zymorven's goals, so let's do that here. He has several reasons he may help the party. The first one is they've aided Urgala, but that's not the primary one. His primary motive is to help the players bring down as many giants as possible, because Zymorven's ability in the scenario that we are making, right, in the campaign that we are making, this is not fair in canon, this is homebrew, all right, heavy, severe homebrew and changing of Zymorven as a character. Zymorven in this case will be a follower of Iymrith, one of Iymrith's chosen ones. That's why he can create statues, that's why he can control them. And the keep, or the hall, is his domain, it's his lair. And the gargoyle, the giant one that Zymorven speaks through, is like a huge sending stone that communicates with Iymrith. But it's not like a sending stone, it's more like a walkie-talkie that allows him to go back and forth because it's huge and has a huge concentrated mass of magic in it. So Zymorven wants to aid Iymrith in her conquest of dividing the small folk and the giant folk and making them fight each other to the bitter end. You can also use this chance to have Zymorven appear in the final battle against Iymrith, which would add that much more of a, you were betraying us the whole time. And since the players now have Iymrith's weapon, Iymrith can communicate with them through it, right? You have a conduit of Iymrith's powers that travels through, that she can use to scry on them, to use sending on them, to give them, like, let's say, divinations that shows the players visions of what's to come, right? And so she can mold the players slowly towards being ruthless giant killers. And if you go that route, if your players are good enough role players, you can go that route and you can have Iymrith through the weapon telling them to kill Harshnag because he is a giant and he is like the rest of them, right? That's if you want to go the sentient route. If you want to go Iymrith becomes the party's patron route, you can do all that. And it's a fun time, no alcohol required, right? So yeah, and that is Zymorven's Hall in a nutshell. Hopefully you can take from this what you can and make your campaign just that much more immersive and fun. This has been Gamma Rays, over and out.